All right, today we're cracking a huge historical mystery. It's one that ties together ancient empires, unimaginable wealth, and the very idea of power itself. We're going to figure out a secret that's been hiding in plain sight for, well, thousands of years.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? Purple and royalty. We just kind of accept it, right? Emperors, kings, queens, they all wore purple. But why that color? What was so special about purple that made it the ultimate status symbol? Well, the answer's probably not what you think.
Yep, you heard that right. The whole story behind purple's power, it doesn't start in some grand palace. It starts on the coast of the Mediterranean with a tiny, pretty unremarkable creature from the ocean.
So let's get into it. We're going to uncover the secret ingredient that made this color so legendary.
You have to remember, this was a time way before synthetic dyes, so being able to create a color that was super vibrant and didn't fade, that was basically a form of magic. And one color was more magical than all the others.
Incredibly, the source wasn't some rare flower or a special kind of rock. It came from a snail. A simple sea snail is the totally unexpected hero of this story. So, say hello to the murex snail. This little guy held the secret. Inside it, there's a tiny gland that produces this mucus that, after a whole lot of work, becomes this amazing, rich purple dye. And this wasn't some happy accident. This was a triumph of ancient science and a ton of patience.
And just to put it in perspective, look at this. Most other dyes back then came from plants or bugs. They were pretty easy to get and make. But this purple from the murex snail, it was a totally different ballgame. It came from the sea, and making it was anything but simple.
And you know what happens when something is super difficult to produce, right? The price goes through the roof. So let's take a look at just how high the price of purple really was.
The process was just insane. First, you needed thousands, and I mean literally thousands of these snails. Then, workers had to crack open each and every one to get to one single tiny gland. Then you had to process all that stuff in giant vats and let it sit in the sun for just the right amount of time for the magic color to appear.
And let me tell you, this was not a glamorous job. Not at all. The final color might have been fit for a king, but getting there was disgusting. Just imagine huge piles of rotting shellfish baking in the sun. The stench was actually famous across the ancient world. All that intense labor and that horrible smell translated directly into an astronomical cost. The dye, which people started calling Tyrian purple, was literally worth more than its weight in gold. So if you owned something dyed with this stuff, it wasn't a fashion choice, it was a power move, an unmistakable statement that you were loaded.
Now this incredible value didn't just create a cool luxury good. It actually built an empire. One group of people mastered this whole process and built an economic powerhouse around it, the Phoenicians.
You see, the Phoenicians were master sailors, and their cities were right there on the Mediterranean coast. Places like Tyre and Sidon became the world's production centers for this dye. In fact, the city of Tyre was so famous for it, the color became known everywhere as Tyrian purple. They basically turned a stinky, messy process into the world's first true luxury brand.
So because it was so rare and expensive, the meaning of purple got locked in. Wearing it instantly told everyone you were part of the 1%. It was a visual shortcut. It screamed wealth, prestige, and, of course, power. A king dressed in Tyrian purple didn't even have to open his mouth. His clothes did all the talking.
And we know for sure this isn't just some legend. We have the physical proof. At these ancient Phoenician sites, archaeologists have found massive mounds, like hills, made of millions and millions of crushed murex shells. It's the industrial waste left over from a luxury goods empire.
So, if we pull all this together, you can see this is so much more than a story about a dye. It's actually a story about how one single color helped shape the entire course of history.
The whole journey is just incredible when you trace it. It starts as this local craft the Phoenicians figured out. It becomes the hottest luxury item traded all across the known world. Then, the big empires like Greece and Rome, they see it and they adopt it as their ultimate status symbol. And just like that, the link between purple and power gets locked in for thousands of years to come.
I mean, what a transformation, right? A truly terrible smell became the definition of luxury. A common little sea snail became the emblem of royalty, and a simple color became a symbol of absolute power.
And that's really the big takeaway here. History isn't just about battles and politics.
It's also shaped by things like technology, trade, and the symbols we all agree on. The story of Tyrian purple is just the perfect example of how something as seemingly simple as a color can have the power to define an entire civilization.
So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. If Tyrian purple was the ultimate symbol of status because it was so incredibly difficult and expensive to make, what fills that role today? What are the modern Tyrian purples? You know, those brands or items whose value comes almost completely from their rarity and the insane effort behind them? Something to think about.